It's Major Label Debut, the podcast about major label debuts and other things. I'm Graham Wright. On my living room wall, directly above the television, I have framed the beautiful tour poster for the final Tokyo Police Club tour. Gorgeous poster designed by our friend and a wonderful artist across many disciplines, Ann Duras, and I wanted to get it framed. It has nice colors on it, and we thought we'd put it up in the spot where there was room for a poster, which was above the TV, which means I find myself looking at the poster all the time. And recently, I began to realize that the dates on the poster, the dates of the final Tokyo Police Club shows, were 1 year ago. The anniversary of each show came and went day by day. And rather than being conveyed across America in a tour bus, I was in my home every day. And it was startling to realize how much time had passed, how different my life has become already, and just how strange it is for something like a band, which your whole identity gets wrapped up in a band that you're in, particularly if the band has any kind of fame or notoriety. When I go to the bank, it says Tokyo Police Club is my job, my employer. So bank tellers will ask me, oh my God, are you in Tokyo Police Club? I used to joke that I would always take my first dates. I would make an excuse to take them to the bank. It's the one place where I would reliably get recognized, as we call it in the biz. But I never actually did that. It really wraps you up in it. You are you of your band. And, you know, for most people who knew who I was, who weren't my friends or family, they knew about Tokyo Police Club and then me below that, right? If you know about this podcast, there's a really good chance that it's because you knew about Tokyo Police Club and then from there found out about me and found out about this show. And now I'm not in Tokyo Police Club anymore. And that has been a really interesting adjustment process. This isn't the place for me to suddenly start monologuing and reflecting on what that means to me. I don't even know what that means to me yet. But because it is the holiday season, we wanted to do a special encore presentation of a really fantastic conversation we had on this show back in spring with Greg Alsop. We got Greg on the show to talk about writing music for podcasts and writing music for television. You know, Greg does that. He also produces, mixes. He's a brilliant musician on both sides of the proverbial window of the recording studio. We had this whole list of questions about writing music to purpose, you know, like we hit up Greg to make a podcast theme with a bunch of really specific requests and he came through like that. First demo was perfect. So I thought it was going to be a really interesting conversation about all that stuff. And then, to probably no one's surprise except mine and Greg's, we just ended up talking about Tokyo Police Club for the entire time. Because this was the first time that Greg and I had really spoken at length since the band ended. You know, you're on a logistical WhatsApp thread all the time. But just to get together and yak as friends, as pals, as two guys who've shared this experience was something we simply hadn't done. And so rather than talking about making music for podcasts or any of the questions we had prepared, we just kind of started to unpack our Tokyo Police Club experiences. And, you know, by the end of the conversation, I think we both realized, oh, gee, I guess we both kind of needed a conversation like this. So it happened at a really perfect time. You know, it's been like another 6-7 months since this conversation. So I'm sure we're both in different places now than we were then. However, I still think the conversation is really worth listening to. I was really happy to revisit it. And to help you celebrate this holiday season, whatever you're celebrating, wherever you're going, however you're spending it, here again is my conversation with my friend, colleague, collaborator, and hero, Mr. Greg Alsop. Hi, Greg.
Hey.
This is our first time seeing each other face-to-face to computer since we said goodbye after the last Tokyo Police Club show. How are you?
I'm well, yeah. I was just thinking about that this morning that, the last time I saw you or Josh or Paul was after that show. And the next time I'll probably see you after this is a wedding in the not too distant future. So
that's right.
Yeah. So as long as we just keep scheduling momentous occasions, I think this relationship is right on track.
You know, like Daniel Day-Lewis only makes a film when it's like a true artistic statement that really, you know, it's got to be worth it. I think at this point in our lives and friendships, we should only come together for the creme de la creme of social gatherings.
No wasted time or space. Yeah, I don't want to just get a beer and eat wings anymore. So we've moved beyond that.
I'm asking for my own education because I'm figuring it out. And I'm sure Josh is listening in curiously as well. Have you started to get a handle yet on like how you're feeling?
I feel like I do in my day to day, but I'm like continuously having dreams about the band or the last show. So I guess subconsciously there's still some work to do down there.
That sounds like a positive direction, though. I haven't had any dreams. And
oh, really?
Either it's all the way out of my subconscious or it's buried so deeply under so much concrete that it hasn't even begun to leak out yet.
Yeah, it's hard to know what the processing is around that. But I think like the last one I had was we had played the last show. It was the day afterwards. I had already flown back to PEI, and then I got a WhatsApp message from the group message saying, from our agent, Stephen Himmelfarb, saying, guys, we got to do a 5th show and we got to do it tonight. Everything's already in there. We're set to go. Tickets are flying off the shelves. You got to get back right now. And so I did a 180, tried to find my way back to Toronto, and then ended up delayed at the Montreal airport. And Jake Boyd from Colorado filled in for me for the final Tokyo Police Club show.
That's not it. We should have done after the 4th night, just one less member night by night as the band just diminished, sort of a fade out rather than a hard stop.
Yeah, the most expensive last 4 shows ever.
For the listeners' edification, Greg did spend most of the summer delayed at the Montreal airport, flying back and forth across Canada for various, it's just one day easy money shows that then extended to like 4 days of hellish transit disaster.
Maybe that's the true minor trauma that I'm trying to work out, is just being stuck at Montreal airport again and again. Yeah.
Maybe you missed the liminal space. You need to fly back to Montreal airport and see what happens to your body when you walk off the plane.
There it is. Yeah, that's when I'll finally, time and space will all meet in that perfect point, and I'll be reborn as I truly was meant to be.
As a fixture of the Montreal airport, the terminal-esque just character. I think that of any airport, I think the Montreal airport could really stand to have like a couple of just little local color. You could learn to juggle. You could learn devil sticks.
As a busker at the Montreal airport, I think they really do. Yeah, I think Montreal would really support that kind of initiative.
I'm not sure how French culture laws apply on the international ground of the airport, but we'll get that all sorted out in the performance.
I am looking for work, so there.
Me too. Most of this podcast is the two of us just stating our resumes in hopes that, instead of collecting sponsors, we're going to send the audio to potential employers.
Yeah, if you could just prep me for potential interview questions, and I'll do the same for you.
I did. I just updated my resume the other day, and it is a real... It's like a creative writing exercise more than anything, where you're just sort of trying to express the point that I know I have one thing on my whole resume, but you have to understand that if you think about it a certain way, I have great experience and I've done many jobs. And when you think about it, being in a band is actually owning a small business. It's it's one of the many ways, I guess, that we get to process this grand transition.
Yeah, I had to write a bio for myself the other week, and I was like stuck on it. And then a friend suggested just ask ChatGPT to do a 1-over on that. I will say it was like the most glowing, beautiful, look at this saint of a person. And I mostly ran with it. I was like, okay, you know what? I needed that kind of boost in my ego and mind right now to just have some robot impartially take a look at my life through Google and put together what they could of me.
And that could be really future-proofing, having that kind of positive assessment in the machine later on when the machines take over and are executing the undesirables. It'll be like Greg Alsop. It says right here that he was the drummer of Tokyo Police Club.
Right. Yeah. It'll allow me to be ascending to whatever heaven they have for us on the other side of it, instead of wallowing in the ore pits or whatever.
We've crunched the numbers, and we can store your data alongside the simulated atmosphere of the Montreal airport for all eternity. So don't worry, you're right where you're meant to be. Now, typically on this show, we like do research and we write questions and we create a plan, and I really participate in it. And this time I thought I don't really need to research Greg's life and career because I've been in the same vehicle and bedroom with him for 98% of it. So I asked our producer, John Paul Bullock, our mutual friend, to generate a list of questions, and I didn't look at them. And I have them here. So I'm going to start asking some of them, and then we're going to go from there depending on how many traps he set for us.
That sounds wonderful.
So, question 1, how dare you? No. Is it weird that I'm interviewing you? Does this make you uncomfortable?
No, but I did wake up in the middle of the night last night, like a bit nervous about it. Just hoping, I was like, oh man, I hope I have enough fuel in the tank to give a proper interview and make this a decent episode. So yeah, I think this is just another and continuing extrapolation of like what our relationship is. It's like we were like friends in high school, and then, like bandmates, co-business owners. We spent, so much time together in so many different like roles that are kind of around a foundational friendship. I think this just feels like a pretty natural extension of that.
I think I know where I'm going with this example, but let's see if I get where I'm going with it. I was talking to someone the other day about dating apps, and it was someone, there's some people, like yourself, I think, whose marriage or relationship started before dating apps really came on the scene. They didn't get to use it. And I was telling my friend about it. And I was saying one of the things about dating apps that is different, value neutrally, is that you don't just like go to a party and meet a person, and then while you're engaging with that person, you start to go like, oh, actually, I have a little interest here. Every single person you meet is like predefined as whatever it is you're looking for, whatever it is they're looking for. Obviously there's different ways to use the apps, but whatever the case, you go into these meetings with like a sense already of what it is supposed to be or what boundary it's supposed to go to.
Right.
And when you and I really became friends, like playing in a band together, and we knew each other in high school, but we were in different grades. We didn't hang around all the time. And at least in my recollection, we kind of recruited you.
Yeah.
We knew you played drums. We knew you were an interesting musician and like a cool guy. That was enough to swipe proverbially right.
Yeah.
But we, like Josh and I, were friends, and we liked the same girl, and that, when you're in grade 8, that bonds you. And then I needed someone to play guitar with me, and I was like, oh, I bet Josh could do that because he's my friend. Whereas our relationship really started as like, let's be in a band together, and then within the context of creating art together, of figuring out how to even do this shit together because we're 14, we like built our friendship out of that, which makes it even more weirdly tied into the band.
No, I think you're right. It's interesting to start a relationship that way, let alone one that way when you're teenagers, where relationships are supposed to be pretty free and easy, and also naturally be called off in like certain ways. We had this thing that like right from the get-go was like, oh, we're doing this together. This is what we do together. And yeah, I think that it feels natural to continue to find ways like this for that relationship to continue. Like it's a working and creative relationship, and like a very deep one. And I don't think that feels less than other friendships. Like in some ways, it's a much deeper bond, being creative and like creatively intertwined with someone else.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to talk to you, because I realized we interviewed like 3 drummers in a row, just coincidentally. And I thought, oh my God, we're having drummer month. We got to talk to Greg. But I knew there was something about talking to you that was like, had that spark, that was exciting. And I think it's that my whole thing with this podcast, the like analytical project that I am attempting to embark on, is all about how creativity and the music that comes out of it is impacted by life and by circumstance. And typically that's like, the major label of it all. A label comes in and you know about commerce and money and this and that all affects you. And we'll talk about that. We have shared some of those experiences. We have the same point of reference. I mean, I learned about that stuff at the same time as you, in the same places, doing the same things. But also with bands, such a colossal, I mean, there's no way to overstate how big a part of it the personal relationships within the band are, because that's what makes the magic. And a great band is more than the sum of its parts, but also it's that because of the interaction of its parts. And you and I were two parts of a band for longer than 20 years together. I don't know that either of us fully understand how that manifested for us, for the band, et cetera. But talking about it, that's what I'm curious about, is like how all the stuff we're going to talk about manifested. At the end of all of this shit we're going to talk about, there's like a 3-minute song. And the 3-minute song just is what it is forever. But everything in it is what we're going to talk about. And that like magical, mystical process is, to me, the most interesting part of all of it. Do you know what I mean? What a question. Let me state a point and then say, do you know what I mean? That's what I'm doing it from now on.
Agreed.
This has been Major Label Debut. I'm Graham Wright, and I'm never wrong. Thanks for listening.
No, I think you're very right. And it's also weird because I think it's a relationship that you can't like really replicate with any other people. Like the exact ingredients that were there will never be there with other people in that same sort of way. Like friendships or spouses, like there's like so many different ways to have deep friendships and relationships. But this one is such a specific time of our life and such a long time of our lives as well. It's just like this chance thing that happened to the four of us, that we got the opportunity to be a band professionally for the entirety of our young adult lives together. That's so bizarre. That's like such a rare thing. Like maybe you'd have a band for 5 years, maybe 10 years, but like 20 years with the same four people doing the same exact thing in just like different iterations and trying to just keep it going. Like you're never going to get that with any other people in a lifetime.
And doing it starting in high school and then just proceeding uninterrupted. I often lazily say that we didn't go to university because I didn't go to university and Josh didn't go to university and Dave went to a tiny bit of university. But you did go.
Yeah.
You have a semester and a half under your belt. And I do want to honor, because you did some of that while we were doing the early days of Tokyo Police Club. And that's no mean feat. But we were still, we didn't start as adults. We started as kids, and then we just like grew up within the band and learned so much about like the world and just these basic lessons of becoming human. We learned in the context of this machine, this hive mind, just, roving the land together, which made it so probably easier and more special and fun. But also now, we get to begin to unravel, like, so where do I find my coming of age?
Yes.
And it's not just like, oh no, that's Greg's. Okay, that goes over there.
No, I don't know what's on the other side. Like really, like it is still so fresh. Like all of it is. And as much as I think, we had a year or so to kind of process the band ending, you couldn't process it well.
No, I thought I could.
At all.
I thought I did.
Yeah. I thought I was doing it the whole time. That's what all those mushrooms were for.
I kept referencing in like did you watch Succession?
Yeah.
I guess spoilers for anyone who didn't. I'll try and be vague. There's a character towards the end. Someone dies and then other characters are talking about the person who died and they're grieving in their ways. And one of them keeps saying like, I'm good. You don't need to worry about me. I'm pre-grieved. I already got that all out of the way. And then, of course, that's the character that like breaks down in the most comprehensive way. And I kept hearing myself telling people about how I was doing leading up to the end. And I could hear myself basically saying like, no, I pre-grieved. I'm fine. Well, we'll get back to the end of Tokyo, but maybe by way of tracing it back to something like the beginning. Do you remember when you first Like when the notion that you could be in a band first occurred to you, and then how quickly was it followed by the notion that you should be in a band?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, like the first idea of wanting to be in a band comes back to like being like 9 years old and like trying to create like a rap group with like three other 9 year olds who were not as like committed or interested in it as I was. I was like very serious, like, okay, this is what we do. Here are our songs. We're going to go to like Much Music and perform these in front of like VJs, and they're going to discover us, and we're going to like take off from there. And then I quickly realized like, oh no, yeah, I'm like the only one who, and this 15-minute recess like really believes in this like master plan for world domination.
I know exactly how you feel. I would do stuff like that all the time as a kid. I'd show up the next day ready to continue our big plan that we'd made, only to find that no one else took it seriously at all.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what you're looking for when you find your like musical soulmates. It's just other people who will show up at the next recess still raring to go.
Totally. Yeah, people who take it seriously. And I think that is when I met you guys in high school, and you guys were doing like the Suburbia EPs on like New Year's Eve. Like you were taking a band seriously. And I think that was the first time I saw people who prioritized it in the same way that I wanted to prioritize it. And so there was like a real kindred spirit and like tenacity that I was like, oh, these people understand the vision.
I just was in the Tokyo Police Club storage space yesterday getting some of my stuff, and I unearthed this. For Theater of the Mind, I'm holding up a 8-track digital recorder from like 2002 or maybe earlier that was like what we made all of our high school demos on. And it still works, and it still has some old demos on it. And I was listening to some of the stuff I did, listening to my like 16, 17-year-old demos, which is always like jumping into an icy bath. But one thing that really struck me was I was like really coming from the outside in. I wanted to be in a band. I knew I wanted to be in a band and be of a band before I understood like what that meant, or before I even cared about writing songs and making art. Like those all came after the idea of like what I want to do is be in a band, and I want it to look like this and feel like this. And I was obsessed with like putting set lists down on the ground, because I would see pictures from bands that played shows with set lists. And the idea of having a set list felt real to me. And I would spend more time on that than I would on like the lyrics to the song I was meant to be writing.
But I think that's interesting, because that's like, you know, to go out there with it, like that's vision boarding. Kind of. That's like saying like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I want the image of my life to be. I know I want to be in a band. I'm going to get that image as clear in my mind as possible. And who knows, like maybe that's like what allowed us to like actually do it. It's like we knew we really wanted to be in a real band, not just like a band that plays like at Newmarket at the Optimist Club or whatever. Like there's like so many different versions of it, but it's like we want this one. We want like the real one where we get to go off and do the thing and go on tours and go into a recording studio. Like we want it to be as real as possible.
Do you remember what like your daydreams were like about that? When you were like, before we had done it for real, back when it was still fresh and you were, I want to ask about like you're learning to play the drums, and maybe for me, certainly learning to play guitar was a lot of like in front of the mirror, watching myself be a musician. That's what encouraged me to do it. But yeah, the whole daydream of it all, like the visions that you would entertain of whether it's on stage or in the studio or whatever it was. Do you remember what you thought you were headed towards?
Yeah, I think it was like, it would have been all informed by, you know, what I would have seen from stuff like Much Music, like Intimate and Interactives, or studio shots from like the inside of like a Smashing Pumpkins like album or something, where it's like, oh, okay, this is like, you're getting like glimpses of like what it is. And then your mind just kind of fills in the rest, and you imagine it just being the greatest ride of your life. And then like thinking of like when we've got to start to do it, like the fantasy versus reality of like going to the Pop Montreal Festival, like to play a real show for the first time in a real place. We're at the Pop Montreal Festival and we're all sleeping on like Dave's dorm room floor, like 4 teenagers and their like girlfriends. Like that's not glamorous, but it is, because that kind of feels like what Roughing It was. Like it's part of the story. It's all part of like the legend of like being in a real band.
Yeah. And it's like, you're aware of building your own legend while it's happening, which is such a bizarre, like cart before the horse way to do it. And yet I feel like I don't know any band that did it any other way.
Exactly. It really is just like feeling like this is real and I know it's real, and that's what keeps it going. And that's like, it gets you through like the crappy parts.
Yeah. And just like, it gets you through the crappy parts of learning to write a song or learning to arrange a song or learning to collaborate, where you're like, you have to face that reality, even with the like delusions of grandeur that make everything you're writing feel like better than it is. There's still that sense, or at least I remember that sense of like, now that we're done it's not quite Kid A.
Yeah. But it's still like, there were moments where it did feel like as big as that. Like even in the suburbia like days in high school, like the band before Tokyo Police Club, there was a sense playing some of those songs in your basement or Will's basement for the first time, where like when you like land on it and you're just like, oh, like this is a real song. We're not just playing with like pretend anymore. Like we've landed on something that feels real. And then like, even though it doesn't, sound like that polished, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, it's still, when we played it to people, it's like, oh yeah, there is something there. Like you do get like little bits of validation from other people. Like, yeah, I think you are kind of like, you're kind of onto something.
And
it's
it
enough.
Feels like if you were like a little kid in the backyard going like, wow, wow, wow. And then for 1 second, you like actually cut a tree in half. You're like, holy shit, I made a real lightsaber with just my imagination. And yeah, I mean, I think those are still, honestly, that's like the feeling in the moment that I'm still chasing.
Totally. Yeah, that bit of magic where it all just, the fantasy becomes reality.
What attracted you to the drums initially?
I was taking piano lessons, and I had a really excellent instructor who Dave also took lessons from, Eugene Berta, who recorded some of the first like Tokyo Police Club demos. And he was always a really innovative and supportive instructor. And so half the lesson would be doing regular conservatory stuff, and then the other half of the lesson would be saying like, go write a song, or let's just like play around in a studio. And he had this Yamaha 8-pad like electronic drum set there. And I was always so excited to stop playing piano and then go over and then just like hammer away on this. And I think it was just that he was like, hey, you're pretty good at that. Like, it was like, oh, you can do like the basic thing right away. And I was like, maybe I am really good at this. Like maybe there is like something in there that I could do. And then it's all I wanted to play like after that. I remember like in grade 7 in music class, you had to like write an essay and audition on why you wanted to be chosen as the drummer, because there's so many people who wanted to do it, but you can't have 20.
We have 2 trumpet players, 20 drummers, and 3 clarinetists. It's a hell of a band.
So I wrote an essay, and I also constructed a pretend kit out of like Kinects and old like plastic ice cream tubs and a practice pad. I like, for my birthday that year, got like a real practice pad and a set of drumsticks. And I just practiced what the rehearsal song like endlessly on it. And I got to do it. And so, yeah, it's just, I don't know. It was just like, it seemed fun. And also I knew like the other kids in my grade who I was like starting to play around with music at, they were all like guitarists. And so it was like, there's an opening there as well. It's like, oh, okay, if I could be the drummer in this band, then I kind of have a secure spot.
I think for most people, that's right around the age too, when you start to like get into a new phase of music. It's a little more independent. It's a little more like, in those days, at least, it was, alt rock. And I know you're a big Pumpkins fan.
Yeah.
And did you start to listen to the drums differently more? Pumpkins are obviously a great drums band.
Yeah. Yeah. That was like listening to the Jimmy Chamberlain drum on Melancholy was just like mind blowing. it's like I couldn't decipher any of it, and I still can't decipher half of it. It's like it's so out there, but it was such an exciting sound. It felt like what like people in like the 70s or 60s when listening to like Keith Moon or like John Bonham must have like felt if you wanted to be a drummer. It's like, oh, here's a drummer playing these insane parts, but like so musically as well. He was writing parts. It wasn't just the regular kick, snare, hat, like supportive stuff. And I think I've always wanted to be a drummer like that and try and create parts for the songs and not just support it, like not be flashy, but just do something, I don't know, just like different and unique and have like an original contribution.
I think it's safe to say that you achieved that goal and then some. I know when Tokyo Police Club was first starting out, I think you would hear more about you after shows. I remember at the Pop Montreal show, people being like, "Your drummer's really cool, man. Like those beats are like he doesn't have to do that. You know, he could just be playing time and like he's doing hooks instead." And I think that was, not to jump ahead too much, but that was so formative for Tokyo and that notion that like no one in this band is just like doing the normal thing. No one's strumming a guitar. No one's playing just the dumb roots on bass. Everyone's doing something.
Yeah, I think that's like a big part of it as well. Like that's really what we tried to do, especially when like we started writing songs for Tokyo, like where it was, we wanted to do the most Tokyo Police Club thing on every song. And it like really became like, that is the DNA of the song, like the band. Like what could we do that sounds so much like us?
I wonder if like starting as young teenagers had a lot to do with that too, because none of us were virtuosos, you know? Like you weren't playing Chamberlain monster mega fills back there. I mean, I was the worst in Tokyo for like practicing and technical skills and stuff. I hate practicing. And I only ever wanted to learn as much as I needed to know to like write the next thing. And I still am like that. I only learn as much as I need to know to like do the idea I had.
Yeah.
And I wonder maybe if we'd waited a little longer before we all got into, you know, a band together where we were just slapping each other on the back and getting that reward of writing, maybe we would have got like more technically skilled. But there's like a simplicity in that early stuff as well that I think if everyone in Tokyo was doing their own thing, but it was like shredding, it probably would have been a mess.
Yeah, I think so. I think we were trying to, I know I was definitely like pushing myself to like the very edge of like what I could do with every song. Like it was really just trying to be either as fast as I could or as like left turning as I could. Like, yeah, I wanted that to be a part of it. And you're right. I think if we had gotten better, and as we did kind of get better, it did kind of like shave the edges off of that. Like you can't be that band forever, but we really hit the right time in music history as well to be like a band doing like interesting but like simple stuff.
I remember very vividly when we were like before Tokyo was finished, you know, we were still cooking it up and we were still experimenting with some of the sounds and some of the tunes. Things were a little bit more out there. You know, electro clash and disco punk and stuff were popular. And we were constantly trying to get you to go like do the 16ths and the snare drum, like what we would call the disco beat back then, or the the Boots and Cats beat, which was popular. And we're like, that's what it needs. That's what it needs. And you would never do it. You'd always wait until you had like a real idea. I don't know. That really stuck with me in terms of not being satisfied with, it's not the easy way, but the natural way or the intuitive way or the etude way to do it.
Yeah. And again, that's like all part of it. Like Dave's bass lines are not like normal bass lines, especially back then. And Josh's guitar parts are all over the place. Like, and like your synth lines are like real hooks. Like there are real hooks in there. You're never like just pedaling out the chords. Like it was really, I think that's what we were all trying to do. And like, again, it's like having that like shared vision for what music could be from the four of us that made it actually work.
I agree. Let's go back to I've asked one question from my list of questions so far. And I know poor John Paul and Josh are listening. to me ramble and you kindly answer those questions. So I have noticed that often drummers, whether they are literally working in a producer capacity like you do a lot now, or whether it's more casual, like occasionally I've been in the studio with other drummers who are, they're there to drum, but sometimes they'll offer other ideas. And I think the drummers have such a great, like, big picture view of the band, like quarterback goalie style. Like they see the whole field and then have musical ideas and arrangement ideas. And I know in Tokyo, you were always like really, really vital to writing the all of the songs, not just the beat, but the arrangement and the harmony and the melody and the dynamics and, even the more ineffable stuff of just like, what is this song like about? What's the vibe of it? Or what's the aesthetic of it? Or where is the compass pointing? And I always felt like you were kind of like, if I needed to know which way north was, I would look at you or I would ask you. And I'm curious how that developed for you. I know it's an open-ended question, but like when you started having ideas for Beyond the Drums and also how you went about adjusting to that knowledge and like functioning in a band creative context, stepping out of like quote unquote your lane as a drummer.
Well, thank you for that. That's every drummer's greatest compliment that you want to hear. That's that you're treated as like a real musician.
Everyone in the band wants to play drums,
yeah,
except the drummer who wants to play the band.
Yeah.
And that's the great tension at the heart of rock and roll.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I don't know. I think like I always, when I write songs or when I'm working on music, like I'm always hearing it as like a complete version in my head. Like I'm kind of hearing like what could be like a full picture. And so it's never just a part, like I am hearing it all. And so I know that there's something that I'm hearing that I want to try to express to the other people that I'm working on it with. And sometimes that's like a good idea. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes like there's just way better ideas out there. Or sometimes it's just like not right. Like in the song, it's like, it's not necessarily like going to be followed, but I do know that I hear an end point. Like it's just like, it would feel weird to like, if I did hear like an idea or like something, it'd feel weird to like not kind of express it if I could, because like we're in the creative process. So it felt like, okay, I should at least like voice this, that like, I know there is something out there that sounds really good to what I'm hearing right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that's, it's the tough thing about asking questions about creativity, because so frequently the answer is like intuition.
Yeah. And I also wonder, like, I mean, like when you write songs or when we're working on Tokyo song, like, what do you hear? Like, I think like we can all like hone in on like our part or like whatever, like our lane of contribution is. But do you hear full songs? Do you like, do you have like kind of a complete vision in your head? Because I never know what other people.
I either have a full vision in my head that then is really tricky. I find it really like I have to fight against the boundaries that I perceive initially. So like I get really bad demoitis. Like I hear a song in one format and the idea, and it's frustrating to me because I came up listening to Radiohead and Wilco and like bands that blew shit up and changed it. And then I find myself hearing demos and always being the voice that's like, oh, I think it's pretty good. I don't know why we're changing it. And 9 times out of 10, it turns out that we're changing it because it's going somewhere way more exciting. And then once I can finally, I like to, that's why I loved being in a band. I could let the band kind of carry me away. I couldn't get away by myself, but if I let the band carry me away far enough, then my brain would just start kicking out like things I would expect to hear. And then it's just intuition, but it's like things that when I find with my own songs, I'll work on it for a while. And then when I stop working on it and it just lives in my brain and I'm like singing it to myself or remembering it, it solidifies because then I start remembering certain melodic tricks or certain arrangement moves that feel exciting and right. And I'll go back and listen to the first demo to be like, oh no, did I forget the good part? And it's always better. maybe this is a way of getting into the TV and film and podcast music that you've been working on, not just since the end of the band, but before that as well. There's an intentionality in that. You have deadlines, you have briefs, you're working in a way that's not quite as freewheeling as like, we're a band and we're, we booked a rehearsal space and we're just coming up with what our heart tells us to come up with. How have you found your creative instrument has like adjusted or asserted itself in that context?
I think especially because it's not like a freewheeling like amount of time to play with. You're just like, with the TV stuff, you have like a week generally to kind of like come up with a fully formed demo and submit it. And so you kind of have to just go with like the first idea that comes to you. You're like, okay, great. That's the idea. That feels like there's something there. And I'm just going to keep like playing with that until it feels done. You don't have like the room to kind of like keep like forgetting and coming back. Like, you sort of do. I'd say like in day 1 and 2, it's like you start with the idea, you like sing a bunch of like random voice memos into your phone and then sketch out some lyrics and then kind of like forget about it after you go to sleep like that night. And then like that morning afterwards, you kind of try and re-remember the idea before you listen back to it. And like, okay, do I have like something better in there? Is there like you're saying, it's like your mind has had a chance to kind of fog it up enough that maybe there's something like better in there, but it is still like coming up with like as clear a vision as like you can like right away and like really trying to follow that as like, okay, that's the end point. That's what I need to get to.
I have a really bad habit creatively, especially with like, I did it early in the podcast when I was being a lot more precious about, I have to write the greatest intro script of all time. And I have a really bad habit of working on something, say for a week, whatever the amount of time is. And then at the 11th hour, having like, eureka, a way better idea that's an entire reconception that involves us throwing all that out and now moving on to this new thing. And it's, when you're working with collaborators, obviously it can be a frustration for them. Do you experience that sort of like ill-timed eureka? And if so, how do you channel that energy in a way that doesn't alienate everyone who is working with you?
I try to not. Yeah. Like, especially in those kind of moments. I think that's like a thing that we would do all the time with Tokyo stuff, like when working on songs, was work on a demo and then scrap it and then be like, oh no, wait, here's the new version, and then scrap it and like work on this. And then eventually after, maybe months of doing that, we'd call it like the circle back and go back to like the first idea. You're like, oh, there was like magic in that. And I think I really tried to take that lesson to heart, especially with like this stuff, because like there just isn't time. Like there isn't time to like scrap everything. It's like you have like, I'm using like every moment that I have to try and like get a demo out by the submission deadline. And so, yeah, I've gotten a lot better at just like trusting my first instinct and knowing that whatever it was, me taking the time to make that as good a version as I can based on that first idea, rather than like hoping that like another bit of inspiration will come in and like supplant that, then yeah.
Right. That's so interesting because we're just doing a little therapy session. I'm going to keep using I statements. I can't do this with Vashti Bunyan. She'll get fed up. But you've listened to me talk about myself for hours and hours and hours and hours. I get that. Like, yeah, I get so inspiration hungry and addicted to that notion of like, oh, it's got to strike me. That's where the really good shit is. I've never had to do what you've been doing over the last like 5 or 6 years. Is that about right? Since you started?
Like 2020. So yeah, like 4 years now. Yeah.
The craft of it, the fact that not only that you can, but that you must use your powers that you have learned and acquired over the years to work on these songs. You must be getting so much, because like Tokyo some years would write one song. Even like the most productive year of our entire career, we probably wrote like 40 songs. And that was when we were working 40-hour weeks. You've probably written that many songs like last year, maybe twice that many. I don't know how much you're doing, but you must like the iteration of it, right?
Yeah. And I think So yeah, you learn to not be like too precious about it. And also because if something does go forward, like so much of this is, you're just like pitching stuff out there. And it's just like demos kind of going out. But if something goes forward and gets selected, you can't be precious about any of it. Like they might love the idea, but want you to like just change, 90% of it. And so you have to also get really good at just being like, okay, cool. Like this is a song for these people and their purpose. Like it doesn't end at me. So now I have to take your notes and take them very seriously and do whatever you want with it at that point. And so I guess like that makes it easier to not like fret about it too much as well, because it's going to keep changing, and a lot of the changes are sort of like out of your control until it's fully done.
That's interesting because it echoes to some degree the way that, the thing that we talk about a lot on Major Label Debut about bands and major labels, and the way that a major label will often acquire a collection of art and say, we love it. Can we change 99% of it, please? And that's often, in the context of bands and records, that's framed as meddling and interference and like anti-art. And there's always a part of my brain that's like, well, I am just like really just doing entertainment at the end of the day. It's getting precious about my art as much as it's truly how I feel. There's a part of me that also suspects that maybe I'm more precious than is totally appropriate. And maybe we all are, maybe all guitar-toting lowlives have that sort of same sense of like, well, the importance of what I'm creating here is really what we're discussing, not like what we can sell, not to entertain people, but to move and change the world. Has your understanding or feelings about art and commerce changed since you started doing this work? And also, has it retroactively changed how you felt about something like the Tokyo Police Club art commerce interactions, for instance?
I mean, I think like with some of the feelings of like having to like protect your art and listen to other people's input, the healthiest way that I found to look at it is that like nobody wants it to be bad. No one wants to like ruin this thing. They all want it to be as like good as possible. And maybe they do have like really good ideas out there. Like generally they do. I've been like fortunate enough like in the television work to have people who they're very good at their job, and every time it's like improved the song so much where it's like, oh, okay, I hadn't even thought about that. Like I didn't even know I had maybe this amount of like room to play with. There's like, you want it to be like bigger or like bolder or like more exciting. Like they wanted to just like hit these like emotional peaks that sometimes like in the band world with that kind of music, because it's your art, it's almost like it feels too exposing to like go for the rafters in that same sort of way. And I think like probably in any of the like A&R or like producer feedback that maybe we would have gotten from some of the music that Tokyo was doing, like I think they were probably just wanting us to go for the rafters more as well. And maybe it was right, maybe it was wrong, maybe it was just like same but different. I wonder like sometimes if like we had like if there weren't that many moments where we were like up against like us against the A&R people. But I think I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's like one of the questions. Like if we had played the game differently, would we have ended up in a different spot?
Yeah. It's interesting, like we took our major label meeting moment was so early, like we took a meeting with Capitol Records when we were, 21, 22 years old, like before Elephant Shell. What would Elephant Shell sound like if we had made it as the first record of like a 6-record 360 mid-2000s Capitol deal? I mean, obviously it's completely impossible to know, but some days I feel like, yeah, oh my God, it probably would have been the best record ever. We would be Kings of Leon right now. And other days I think like, oh, maybe it just there would be no Tokyo Police Club.
Totally.
We would have spent 5 years working on a record, got nowhere, and then broken up with like nothing to show for it. And I guess, I mean, that's exactly the calculus that we were trying to figure out when we made the decision to not sign with that label. It's like, what will it do?
Yeah. And I think like we always took the path of like trying to protect ourselves and like that original vision of like what the band is. And I don't think we were wrong at that, but you're right. Like it's like to have that kind of thought experiment. It's like who knows what the other path could have done for or against us.
You said something in the last Tokyo Police Club interview with CBC. We were at Toronto institution Sneaky D's, and you said something to the effect of like, we all wanted the band to work so much, and then it did, and then we were all on whatever level terrified that it would be taken away from us. And it seemed like everyone could and might take it away from us. The label will take it. The manager will take it. We'll take it from each other if it's not a success on whatever metric that meant at the time. And that really hit me right in my core. So I was like, oh shit, yeah, there was so much like, it's weird to call it fear-based because I think it was also like love-based and enthusiasm-based. And like we were talking about earlier, we got to do the thing. I didn't have to play guitar in the mirror anymore. I was playing guitar to an audience, a real audience that liked it. I mean, we were like a real fucking band. And in the beginning, it really felt like, damn, the sky's the limit. But then rather than feeling empowered by that, I felt like cowed and frightened by it. Was your experience along those lines?
Oh yeah, 100%. It was like such a leap of faith to like leave university and start touring and like take the band seriously. And I don't think I ever stopped like having more leaps of faith. Like it was like with every like move forward, especially during those like first 5 years, it felt like, okay, like we're like re-upping on this again. Like we're coming back in there. Like it never felt on solid ground ever. Like I think
it wasn't.
Yeah.
In a
of
way,
course it wasn't.
Financially, if nothing else. And this is the kind of like our version of the art commerce interaction is this really weird, like working musician, blue collar musician thing, if I can call it that, where it's like, if you keep saying yes to everything, you can keep doing this for your job, barely.
Yeah.
But you gotta do the weird gig and you gotta sync the weird song in the commercial. And like, you can't, like the stakes did feel, I mean, we're talking about indie rock, so whatever, but like the stakes felt really high. It really did feel like at any time we were on pretty thin ice. And that's a funny thing to say about a band like Tokyo Police Club, that we just did this big triumphant farewell that makes it look like, oh my God, we were humongous the whole time. Like so many people, I don't know if you've been getting this, you're not in Toronto, maybe you get less of it, but so many people are like, oh my God, those shows are so big. Why did you guys ever quit? And I have to be like, it wasn't, those shows were real outliers, man. Like we spent 10 years before that toiling our asses off. And we were lucky. We were an incredibly successful band. People were jealous and justifiably so. And it was still, you're always enthralled to the almighty Aller.
Yeah, I think feeling that pressure of it like potentially going away with every like album that we made or like decision, I don't think it necessarily made me more like present to like all the experiences out there as like that could go away. It was more like the big picture, like, oh, like this potential. And like when we're talking about the idea of like, okay, we were like an indie band, the dream never felt like that. The dream that was in our heads and the dream that was kind of presented to us by people in the industry was like, oh, you could be like the biggest band in the world. We don't know. That's what everyone wants out of you, is for you to be as big as you could possibly ever be. The stakes felt so high. Like even when we were doing 500 cap clubs or something like that, it still felt like, oh, but who knows? Like it just takes one song and one like right move. And then all of a sudden you're going to be up here.
And that's a feeling. This is great, man. So, I mean, it's wonderful to talk to you at all. We haven't spoken since we had the show, but it's also just great to be able to like talk about this stuff directly, because I always find myself face to face with, whatever musician of legend. And I want to ask like, what is it like to just be like in the dream, and yet the dream is different than you thought it would be. And like the way that people talk about a song is this like crazy making truth. I have recently spoken to one of the members of the Surfaris, and I tell some people about the Surfaris and they know. People who don't know, I say, oh, the band that wrote Wipeout. And everyone knows Wipeout.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's like meeting the guy that wrote Happy Birthday. You wrote fucking Wipeout. Like that's incredible. You like pulled that out of the air. It's a perfect piece of music. And it's so, I mean, it's just iconic, doesn't even do it justice. And that's an extreme example, but it's like, yeah, if you write a song and almost every time, I mean, you know, there's the pop world where those songs are manufactured more deliberately, and that happens in rock too. But it seems like the real iconic, undeniable rock songs that cross over into, you know, just the wider world have at least the appearance of, you know, being not written on purpose as hits.
Yes.
Just being written by people trying to write a song, you know, people who got together in a room and had an idea and chased the idea to where it excited them. So in a sense, there's that exact notion of like, all you have to do is write one of those songs, and it could be any song. That's the beauty of it. No matter how long you've been doing this, whether you're green, whether you're a veteran, whether you're yesterday's news, whether you're tomorrow's news, it all goes away if you just write that song. The problem is that's like a fucking miracle to write that song, but everyone just talks about it. And especially as the other, and I know you know all this, Greg, I feel like I finally get to articulate this to our listeners
this is
in
good.
a way that makes sense. When you're new, the newness itself is saleable. So it's like, oh, this is an exciting young band. They look cool. They're like, they have their own vibe that's sexy. We can sell that to people as like a whole cool vibe of rock and roll. But the longer you go and the more established you become, people start to only talk about the song. And, you know, the difference for Tokyo, for instance, between making Champ and the way that the industry engaged with us and the potential horizons we saw, and then making Force Field, where all anyone wanted to talk about was like, there's not quite a single there. There's not quite this. There's not quite that. Try again. Spend another year writing, searching for the song. I guess my question for you is, how do you feel about that?
I think you're right. Like, that's exactly it. Like the first 3 albums, A Lesson in Crime, Elephant Child, Champ, was all based around like, this exciting novelty of like 4 young kids, like 4 young, like extremely energetic kids, like cranking out these songs that like felt nostalgic and like very fresh. But like none of those songs were one of those songs on like those albums, like those songs that just like crosses over into the collective consciousness of people. And we didn't like happen on one of those hits. And so, that's exactly right. When we stopped to then make Force Field, and we were still kind of in as close as we ever were to like a major label working with mom and pop, it was like, okay, you guys can't coast on this like fresh-faced novelty forever. Like, it's either you come up with like one of these songs that is going to just like touch everybody that ever hears it, or we have no other ideas for you.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. It's like we're coming up with so many ideas. Like in those 2 years, we demoed 40, 50 songs, like potentially for Force Field, and to have every one of them be met with like it's just not quite there yet. Like, keep digging, keep working, like send Dave off to like writing retreats in LA with these people who might be able to like dig that out of you. Like, what a maddening process when everything we had done up to that point was working perfectly. Like, it was met with like, okay, you're playing the game exactly right, but now that game is over. And now if you really want to be in the big leagues and continue a career, you have to try and level up to this. And it's like, it's not an impossible feat, but it's like, there's no recipe for that.
And it's once you start playing that game, the whole apparatus changes. Now you're chasing a different thing, and you're looking for a different thing, and it makes all the songs have different context and different sense. And if you're not careful, you wind up with a record that's like 12 close but not quite. And I love every song on every Tokyo Police Club record. And I think we ultimately did a good job like pulling it back in when it really counted and not letting things get totally lost. But like, I know people who have made records trying to write one hit, and instead they wrote like 12 songs that sound like good tries at a hit, and they don't sound like them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like the thing that people liked, the label, or that anyone liked from them. And it's like your compass gets all fucked up. Do you remember how you went about keeping your head, keeping your heart in the right spot? Or if you lost it, how you got back to it?
I mean, I think like during that time, we were all spending so much time together, like just trying to get it. So like we had each other to like keep ourselves accountable. And I think that was important. And again, like that's all we ever really had was like the trust of like 3 other people to tell you if it was like good or not. And we all knew when something was like good, and we all knew when something was like, not like quite up to our standards or like quite up to like our vision.
Yeah.
I do remember feeling discouraged in that like weird rehearsal space, going in like hours and hours every week, like just trying to come up with 10 songs that would like get the green light from like the label. And again, like them not really being able to like help you at all. I think that's like a weird thing about the relationship between like a label and a band is like they're not always there to create the path for you. They're just sometimes there to like block it if they don't see it as like
well, for them that it's axiomatic that like it's a song, and we're in the business of hits. We're an American big label. We're in the business of radio hits. And it was at a time for us, just coincidentally, the music industry was moving in a way where a band like ours had the potential to have a hit, to be a big band in a way that, 10 years before or 10 years after, I don't think anyone would have even bothered to give us a meetings. It's like, well, an indie band like Tokyo Police Club doesn't do hits. That's not really like how the machine works. But it did work like that then. But then what they can do, is like, well, we have the capacity to take a song that might work and force it down everyone's throat. But if you don't give us the ingredients, like we don't really turn on the machine. Then there is no point to this label, or for us, and I wonder, I mean, this is a classic, and it's weird with these what ifs, these what could have beens, is I find they are almost always career based. I don't have a lot of like artistic regrets. All of my regrets are about like, oh, we would have been bigger. We could have made more money. And then I have to remind myself that like, who gives a shit?
Right. But I mean, it's like, yes, who gives a shit? But it's like, again, like going back to like that first vision for the band, it's like, you want that, like, that's like the final point of the dream. Or at least like what it kind of like feels like. It's like, oh, it's like I woke up before I got to fly or whatever it is, like in the dream. Like it couldn't quite. I could like jump off the ground really high, but I couldn't just like soar through the air.
And I could feel it if the alarm hadn't gone off. Yeah. Yep.
And it feels so like natural to want that. And I agree. Like I love all the songs. I love all the music that we made. And I also like understand, like in listening to it, like, oh, of course, like these songs aren't like major radio songs out there. Like they just weren't trying to be that. And that's also okay. Would it have been nice to have a song that like continuously like generated an income for us, like into like our future, that was like, oh, okay, this is your pension right here. Of course, that would also be amazing.
Of course. And that also means that that's a song that like when you tell people you wrote it, everyone knows that that's great. And like that maybe is the real endpoint of the dream, is not fame, but recognition of like you made something that, you were a big Pumpkins fan. We were both big Radiohead fans. The Strokes, we were sort of just pre-social media enough that the bands that were coming our way as teenagers in a suburb were like big bands on the radio necessarily. And so you form your vision of what a band ought to be, or at least I formed my vision through that. And it's like, well, that's like, I mean, obviously it's the honor of my life to have made any music that any number of people truly like, and the Farewell Tokyo tour was a really beautiful reminder that, those not to, well, I'll jerk us off a little bit here. It was a beautiful reminder that music really did touch like a lot of people in a way that the music I love touched me. And that's, I mean, you can't complain about it. but it does make you hungry for like, oh my God, but what if that was like 1 million people?
Yeah.
And they loved a song that I wrote, and I wrote a song that 1 million people could love. That would be, who wouldn't want that? Needless to say.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and so now I think it's like interesting to be on the other side of that, having like ended the band. It's like, okay, like the dream is closed for now. Like the potential to write a song within Tokyo Police Club that does that, for Tokyo Police Club to have reached that. It's like, well, no, like it's like we don't have that. Like maybe we'll be graced with some kind of like TikTok viral or whatever the next great app is to launch people that are retired into the stratosphere. Who knows? Maybe that'll happen. And I guess that's like where the work is, like in like these like past few months, like after having like played the final show, it's just like, okay, what's the new dream? Because I don't want to stop having dreams.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing to come up. I talked to Bob Lee, who played drums in a band called Clawhammer and also in like roughly 1 billion other bands, it sounded like. And he's been doing it for ages. And he said, you learn over time that like the dream changes and the dream isn't one static thing. The dream evolves, but you're always, you're playing music in some way. And in that way, you're still living the dream, composing and creating. But the thing about living the dream is it's oxymoronic, because if you're living it, then it's not really the dream, is it? And that's one of the things that gets in the way of bands too, is you get to that level that you're like, oh, if we could play one show, if we could record one record, if we got a record label, that's all I would ever want. I'm sure I said that shit when I was 17. I probably meant it too. But then once we got the record deal, I wasn't like, But yeah, to come up with a new dream, or not to come up with, but to discover the next dream now after all that time is a really I'm sure both of us and Josh and Dave in their own ways are wrestling with that angel day in, day out.
Yeah, I don't think it's like unhealthy either. Like it's like the dreams are what inspire you to make art and create. Like you want, for what I like to kind of get out of making art, it's like you make it like for yourself, but you also still have this like idea in the back of your mind. Like, I really hope that people really understand this, that people really get it. Kind of as many people as it possibly could. Like, I think that's like the ultimate goal. Like when you make something, is like, I really want a lot of people to say yes to it.
Yeah.
And so it's healthy to dream. Like I don't think that's like unhealthy art. It's just like part of the fuel and the DNA of it. At least as far as like my personal understanding of like what creation, or like what I want creation to be.
So where are you finding that these days? You're obviously working a lot, and it sounds like your craft is sharpening and sharpening, and your mind is getting better and better at working on this stuff. And I mean, I can't wait to hear what you keep coming up with for those reasons. But that feeling of like, it's happening in my heart, it's happening in my soul, it's me, it's the creative engine. I'm being visited by the fairy. You know what I mean? Like, do you are you locating that in any one place? That's a very personal question to ask on the podcast.
Yeah, I think like I'm looking for it in trying to create like ideas that feel like I can have some like ownership of it as well. Like beyond just like making music for like shows, it's like, okay, I feel like the next like step that I want to do is like make shows. It's like, and then like be part of like the ground floor of like creating like a vision for that. So I'm starting to play around with ideas for that, because that feels like it scratches the itch in kind of a way more similar to like being in like a band. It's like, oh, okay, I know I'm like one step less removed from like the creative project. You just get to be more of the artist, and then like more of the creator, and like more of the craftsman. Like I don't know. I think that's like what I'm excited by next.
I mean, it makes perfect sense, but it's interesting to me the way that like when certainly when we were teenagers and when Suburbia was the band and then when Tokyo was young, it felt like we were doing just as much, like our creativity was manifesting just as much in like making buttons or writing our MySpace bio.
Yeah.
Or like all getting together to write an email to like, a label guy that came to one of our early shows and we wanted to really impress him. So the four of us would work on like punching up a really funny email. And we built a drum kit out of cardboard. We painted your kick drum skin and Dave's bass. We painted signs that said Tokyo Police Club. All of those activities were like as much a creative outlet as the music was. And then as you move into the business itself, you get like streamed into a more focused creative environment where you're like, okay, you're the band. Like we work on the music, we work on the songs and the show. And then when we need to do a video, we hire someone or this or that. Not every band works that way, but that's typically how it's done. And then it's easy to forget that like there's more than one way, obviously, to be creative. And there's more than one way that we were creative. And so, yeah, that's it doesn't surprise me that you're finding the dream in places other than just music. Not least because there's more unknowns there too, right? More surprises.
Yeah. And I think it's like what you get to do when you create a band is like create a whole world that you get to like exist in. And I think that's what I'm excited about doing is like, how can I create like another world to exist in and like create it? And like all of those things that were like the dressings around the music, like writing the email, making the buttons, sewing pillows, like it's all just like, oh, we got to create our own world. That's what I want. Like that, I guess that's like the ultimate dream. And, that's what I wake up like excited to try to find again.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, that's how this podcast was born. It was like, oh, me and someone are talking and we have an idea. And suddenly, next thing you know, 3 hours have gone by and you've scrawled notes on both sides of the napkin. And you're just like, it's carrying you along, that feeling. I always think of you and I specifically when we used to write, like when we wrote A Lesson in Crime, the Tokyo Police Club EP in Josh's basement in Newmarket. I always knew that things were like really cooking when you and I would make eye contact and both be like, have that giddy grin on our faces. And it's like, that's the feeling ultimately. That's what I want to catch eyes with someone that I love and both of us know outside of language that like we're doing something.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's it. That is like that's the exact moment that you want to capture again and again. It's just like that shared acknowledgement and like magic.
It's magic.
Like collaboration. Yeah.
And it's the same magic that happens at a good gig where it's like everyone in this room is understanding something between us without talking about it. But we just all know at the same time. And that like community, that true community is so, how can you ever stop searching for it once you've felt it one time?
Yeah. It feels so, you feel so alive and so connected and so just like in it, like so in the moment. It's like the most like flow statey kind of thing that you can ever go for. So yeah, totally. I don't want the end of the band to be the end of like having those moments. I want that drug again and again.
It's the greatest feeling in the world. Kids, that's our advice for young kids who want to be in bands. Chase the dragon.
Yeah.
Well, by way of moving towards a satisfying conclusion, I should ask you about the most important, enduring, iconic work of music you've ever been involved in. I'm talking, of course, about the major label debut theme, which you created for us so quickly based on such a vague napkin sketch of not even an idea, just a sort of general brief. How do you go about approaching a podcast theme creatively? I mean, it's talk about a specific purpose for a piece of music.
Yeah. I mean, I think like you guys had like an idea that made a lot of sense. It's like, okay, like the sound of like a lo-fi demo tape evolving into something that feels like a major label produced single. So like the arc was there. And then thankfully at that time when Paul called me, I had just been doing a bunch of demo pitches for the new Ninja Turtles show. And I did not get it, but I did like 6 demo cues that were all like the brief said, we want like scrappy garage rock songs that sound somewhere between like Sex Bomb from like Scott Pilgrim and like Sleigh Bells. And so I was already like in that world of like, okay, I'm going to be playing a lot of guitars and like drums and doing something that feels like somewhere between like really garage rock and like really like glossy, like punk kind of stuff. And so I submitted those, and then Paul called me like the next day. So like, hey, you want to do, we're starting this podcast and we want you to do the theme song for it. And like the idea of it like fits almost exactly on what you've just been doing over like this last week of scrambling to create music. So it was like, it just kind of seemed like a natural extension of what I had already been doing. And yeah, it came out really fast. Like, yeah, I remember like starting a version of it that morning after the phone call. And then by like midnight, I think that night, I was like, oh, I think I've got like something here. I'll like send it off and hopefully they like it.
And then it was done. I feel like we had no notes.
Yeah, there was no notes, which was really,
I actually
really
do.
nice.
I've been saving them for this conversation.
Okay, great.
So if it's just another couple of hours and we'll get through it.
Yeah.
In your home studio there, is there a piece of gear or software or anything that you find is like your current inspiration center?
Yeah, I bought this like synth like 2 years ago called like a Korg Wave State. And it's like a digital synth that uses wave samples, and you can it kind of like almost like scrolls through them in like real time. So it's almost like sequencing waves, like, and it's like endlessly creative. It's like the samples are really good. It's like everything sounds incredible through it, but you can do really like weird synth stuff where you can have like the sample of a marimba and like somebody screaming, like slowly crossfading like between the two. And so you can come up with these really cool textures or play beautifully sampled versions of like analog synths.
Do you find yourself, I also make a good amount of music like alone in my home, and I find myself in the absence of other band members, I think I really gravitate. Like I recently bought one of those hologram electronics microcosm pedals, like a really like expensive, fancy, cool thing that when I watched YouTube demos of it, just everything sounded amazing. And I was like, I want to do that. And I got it and I put it on my board and I, spent like 40 minutes arranging my whole place to like around it. And then I started playing through and I was like, it just is like, beautiful sound is coming back at me, but like I can't get inside it, and it isn't surprising me, and it isn't. So anyway, I find myself gravitating instead to things that like do something weird or unexpected or like wrong or imperfect, and I wonder if it's kind of like a way of like I need another presence in the room, and if I can't have a band with me here, then I need to have like a ghost in the machine instead. When you said marimba and screaming voice back and forth, that's the kind of cockamamie idea that sounds like collaborative.
Yeah, I think so. It's like you got to find something that like sets you off on a new direction. And it's so hard to do that on your own. Like, how do you interrupt yourself?
Yeah. And exactly. How do you make something that's not just like a perfect execution of the one idea?
Yeah.
And I guess that's always the trick, is finding that like keeping the humanity in it, especially now when you're like, oh, what's the easiest thing in the world to do is create perfect music. It's never been easier. And, it's always interesting to look for those little blips or bloops or scratches or fuck ups or whatever.
Totally. I do find like I miss like when I am working on my own on like, I do miss other people. I think like having like a co-writer or even just like somebody else like come in like to like sing a demo or something, like just having somebody else infuse their energy into it.
Yeah.
So it's not just you, like it's not just all coming through you and your like strain to like push the rock up the hill. It's like, oh, can you like take a turn and like push it for a little bit?
Yeah.
It goes so far.
Especially as a drummer. I mean, you have so much power when you're playing in a rock combo to like jump a beat or to like to do something unexpected or to to stop or to just be surprising. And obviously you can do that by yourself, but you have to either you're playing along to a finished piece of music that doesn't do that and it keeps on not doing it, it doesn't react to you, or you have to plan it all out in advance, and then that's cool too, but it's like an ingenious idea rather than a inspired notion.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have like the room for like those those like magic moments of whatever to like come in that same way. So yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. Like you need to find like friction points out there to just kind of like rub you into a new direction.
But then on the other hand, there's not 3 other assholes in there ruining everything for you. So it's a double-edged sword.
That's the trade-off.
We always wrap up every episode of Major Label Debut by asking the most important question, which of course is, what did you eat while you were in the studio recording the album in question? So I guess in this instance, I'd love to know what you were eating when you were recording the MLD theme song, and or what fuels you in your home studio. Eating in your home studio has a different vibe than eating in a recording studio where you just get takeout every single night.
Yeah, I eat, it would have been late at night and I would have wanted something warm because my studio's in my basement and it's always like a little too like chilly down here. So I would have been eating, they're called like morning rounds. They're these like little like baked muesli bread kind of things, almost like a flattened like bagel with like raisin and nut in it, but with no hole. That with like peanut butter. Oh yeah, it's so funny. You're in the recording. One of my favorite things about being in the recording studio is getting some junk ass food and sitting around with everyone eating it. Yeah. And then you're at home and you're like, oh, I guess I'll just have like a spoonful of peanut butter. Back to work. We come for the glitz. We stay for the glamour. Just pure protein and yeah. I also want to shout out, just talking about Tokyo Police Club and eating, I've never got the opportunity to pay tribute to Uncle Benny's, the Aurora 24-hour diner, where in the early days of Tokyo Police Club, the early days, like pre-playing gigs even practically, we'd go there almost every night after our rehearsals and eat. What a bizarre place. It was, open 24 hours. And family run. And it seemed like the entire family was like working there all the time too. So, you know, there'd be like an old grandfatherly figure, like bringing us milkshakes. And then sometimes like a 8-year-old girl, like also like bringing us fries. Like it was like I vividly remember like a girl who could not have been older than 10. Yeah. Showing just unremarked upon, as though she was the regular server, just like rocking up to the table and putting down some food and walking away. And the 4 of us just sort of talk about catching eyes in a moment of not creative inspiration, but universal comedy. Yeah, it felt like being in like a weird Twin Peaks moment or something like that, where it's just like, oh, something's just like slightly askew right here. And it's 2 a.m. No one's drunk because we're teenagers and driving around. So it's like a stone sober like version of like, like what did we just slip into right now? That was Uncle Bunny's. Yeah, very 50s. We like put down our rock and roll guitars and went out to have shakes and burgers at the local diner, just cruised on down there in the car. But you know what you need, I think, an important ingredient in a dream like that, you know, which so far has been kind of the great dream of my life, is a place to like dream it. And we were, you know, in between food deliveries by child laborers, we were outlining our plans for world domination and our plans for what the band was going to be. And it kind of became many of those things as well as something entirely of its own. Yeah. Well, again, like we were living in the world entirely, like that we were created around us. And like that was as much a part of it, was like making the music and then going off the same 4 people, not tired of each other yet, to like continue to build the world together. Well, Greg, it was, to say on a podcast that it was a pleasure and an honor to build that world and live in it with you. And Josh as well, I know you're listening. And Dave, if you listen, is the understatement of the century, but it will have to suffice because that's the medium we're in. Thanks so much for doing the pod, man. It's really beautiful to talk to you again and talk to you about this stuff from this new remove. And also not like in New York City at 3 a.m. Thank you so much for asking me. It was like it's such an honor to talk to you in this way, and it was like a beautiful excuse to just move some shit around internally that needs to be moved. Yeah, see what the dreams are like tonight. You know, that's what my therapist would say. See where we go. I'll be back in the Montreal airport, and somehow also at Uncle Benny's with an 8-year-old girl telling me that my flight is canceled. In French. Yes. There you have it, my conversation with Greg Alsop, drummer
of Tokyo Police Club, or at least he used to be. That was an Encore presentation. If, anything in there that was antiquated from a news perspective or, a perspective, that's because we did that back in the spring, and we're just re-airing it now for the holidays, because holidays is a time for family, and Greg is my family in a very real way. So thank you yet again to Greg for that wonderful conversation, and thanks to you, the listener, for listening all year long. It's been such a joy to do this podcast now for over a year. Our birthday is come and gone. And we're going to keep doing it next year. But in the meantime, I hope you and yours have a wonderful end of 2025. We made it. We made it, people. 2026, it's going to be its own thing. And we'll see you there. But for the moment being, just enjoy your holidays or enjoy your winter time or whatever it is you're immersed in right now. I hope you find some enjoyment in it. That's this episode of Major Label Debut. The show is produced by John Paul Bullock and Josh Hook. Josh, also my colleague from Tokyo Police Club. God bless you, Josh. And of course, God bless Dave as well, the singer of Tokyo Police Club. Not involved in a producerial capacity in this podcast, but still celebrated by all of us here. Greg Alsop, who I just spent all that time talking to, did our theme music. Greg, we love you. And I'm Graham. I'm the host of the show. Please like and subscribe. Take care of yourself. Major Label Debut will be back with more tales from the intersection of art and commerce. So long.